Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to talk about the enterprise connectors and how to connect to Gmail from Delphi. My name is Olaf Monian and I'm a Embarcadero MVP, the coordinator for the German-speaking region, and I'm the CEO and owner of Developer Experts. We do consulting, training, and custom project support. So if you need a quotation, just drop me an email at olaf@monian.net. And of course, if you have any questions, just drop me an email. All right. The enterprise data connectors. The enterprise data connectors are basically a huge library of drivers for almost every single service and data connection on this planet. Literally, they have about 150 drivers for each and everything. They offer those connections to these external services through ADO.NET, ODBC, and many more technologies that you could use. And that's for us. They offer a FireDAC layer, so we can talk to any of those services that they offer drivers for through our FireDAC drivers. So the enterprise data connectors are, of course, a third-party component set. So the CData company is behind that, and they offer all those packages. The FireDAC drivers, so everything we need or from a Delphi or C++ builder perspective, is exclusively distributed by Embarcadero. That's my knowledge, at least. So when you want to use those drivers and want to buy a driver, you basically buy a package from Embarcadero. Technically, there are 150 or even more drivers for or from CData. Embarcadero decided to sell two packages. The first package is a enterprise connectors package, and it has like 70 components in it. And then there is the enterprise connectors plus package, priced differently, of course, which has all other components in it. So you have to decide if you need something from the smaller package or you just need everything. From my perspective, I would probably like to have a single driver purchase option as well, even if that would be much more expensive per driver. But if you only need one single driver, it's probably more cost effective to be able to buy one of just to buy that single driver. But it's the decision of Embarcaderos, of course, and they decided to sell two different packages. The smaller package is available for around $900 to $1,000, and the large package is about $2,000. All right, you see the URL. There is all the purchase information available. Today we are going to look into Gmail. The original plan was to look into Bing as well, but I'm going to do a separate video for Bing because there were some difficulties probably on my end because you had to set up a certain account there. So that's going to be a different or separate webinar. So Gmail. The downloads are available at least for Delphi 10.2 and 10.3. They have trials, of course, so you can check everything before you purchase. And fortunately, they offer separate downloads for every single driver. So to get access to Gmail, you just follow that download URL that I posted here. They have quite good and extensive docs for every single driver, specifically for FireDAC with specifics for us Delphi or C++ guys. So that's really nice, and it basically explains most of the stuff that you need to know. And the actual, I wouldn't really say challenge, but it's certainly been a challenge for them to develop that. What you have to keep in mind is what they offer is a SQL-driven access layer to all the external services that they offer drivers for. So everything you do, or you will do, even with Gmail, is gonna be based on SQL. So everything is based on select statements, insert, update, delete. So you can of course read data. We will be able to read from Gmail. And of course, if you want to post a new message into Gmail, well, you basically send an insert statement. All right, let's have a quick look into Delphi, how to get this thing going. All right, we are in Delphi. That's 10.3.2 Delphi Rio, that is. Basically, everything should work as well in C++ Builder as well. It's probably best to use one of the newer Delphi versions. I actually didn't check if or what the oldest version is that they support. So I tried everything in Delphi Rio, and that works fine so far. Installation is basically easy. Before we go into more details where to get everything, just let's have a look at what we are going to build here. So just let's run this application here that I prepared. So it's a very trivial application, which is basically just demoing how to get started with your own email application. Of course, you probably wouldn't want to build an email application. You probably would want to show certain pieces of Gmail that you have hidden in some folder or whatever. So right here, simple interface. Here's my inbox to be displayed, and let's connect to Gmail. You see, this is SQL. So we see the SQL hourglass here, and in my Gmail inbox there are a few emails which I just received, and you can see I can actually move from one email to the other. And the first two ones had very simple HTML. The other ones have HTML in it as well. So we would probably need some kind of an HTML viewer here, but that's not the scope of this webinar. So how would you start to create something that obviously reads your the emails from your inbox and displays the messages body somewhere in a separate memo, as I do here. So before we go into the details, let's have a quick look how to actually get the components. So this is the CData website, and as you can see, they offer really drivers for even exotic services. They have, of course, many of the well-known services, even stuff like Salesforce. There is SAP somewhere in their services, and of course there is Gmail. That's what we are going to look into. So there is Gmail, and you can see there are different driver models that they are offering, and here we would go for FireDAC. Okay, so this is FireDAC then, what we are interested in, and you can go to the download section, and there is the trial version that you could download. I have a full version actually, and before you can get the full version, you need to apply your license key, which you would receive from Embarcadero when you purchase the package at Embarcadero. So at Embarcadero, we have Embarcadero Products Enterprise Connectors, and there is basically an overview of the available drivers. So we have Enterprise, the Enterprise package and the Enterprise Plus package. So everything marked in red is in the Enterprise Plus package, and of course the gray items are as well in the Enterprise Plus package. So Gmail is somewhere down here, and it's marked in gray, so you would need the smaller package only. And here are the prices. So this is the Enterprise Connectors package, and this is the Plus package on the right side, and you get the prices down here. So it's a little bit less probably in dollars. So we are talking $900 to $1,000 for the whole package of 70 drivers and 130 and more. It's probably even 150 right now. So like I said, single downloads or single purchases would probably something I would consider offering, but that's the sole decision of Embarcadero, of course. All right, so we download this driver set. Now the installation is pretty easy. You just select it and let its installation work. And once you've done that, you can go into Delphi. And you see I have a relatively simple application. I have just a single main form, and I have a data module for Gmail, and there is the whole magic. So everything you do with the enterprise connectors is going through a FireDAC connection. So this is the FireDAC connection component here. I call that or name that the connection Gmail. And if you double click a connection, or just let's go back and drop a FireDAC connection on the form, just so that you see how you actually would start. So you have a new connection here, you double click the FireDAC connection, and what you do is you select the driver ID. So here you select the database or CData component that you want to talk to. So here are, for those who have never used FireDAC, here you would select, for example, Microsoft SQL Server or MySQL or Mongo or whatever, and then we have CData everything. So you can see I have CData Gmail here, and then you get all the options that you would need for Gmail. All right, that's basically it. The connection, let's remove the that one here, and the actual connection is basically done through a separate user and password combination. So this is not my Gmail connection. That's a bit misleading. This, or even the docs say it's your somehow your Gmail account, but that's not exactly true. Gmail changed that a bit. So you have separate passwords for applications, and I made this, of course, an application password. So let's have a quick look at Gmail, how that works. Let me open a new window here, and in this new window we go into the Google account, into the security section. So this is the standard Google account, and in the security section there are app passwords. So we're not using the standard passwords, but a so-called app password. So I have to sign in again and use my password here. Come on. Let's do that. Copy the password and go in here. Fine. So I created a CData demo password. So when you go to generate, usually you can create your app passwords. Right now, you would basically select other and call that Delphi whatever demo, and then call generate, and this would be your password for a single application. So you can actually separate the applications that can access your account. There are also OAuth based connection possibilities, but that's something for a different webinar, which I'm gonna do. All right, let's delete the one that I just created and assume we got the password in the clipboard, right? So, and that's the password that I actually entered here. So it's my regular login to Google. And here we have the password. All the other options are not important. So it basically should work out of the box. So connection established successfully. That's cool. All right, so we can connect to Gmail now. And in Gmail, we have the possibility now to query from our message boxes. Okay, so the first thing that I have here is a list of my mails in the inbox. So, you know, Gmail has quite an interesting concept of boxes. Everything is actually in just one box, but they technically just label everything, so whatever. One more step actually, so that this access really works, you now need to go into Gmail in your account and make sure that IMAP is actually activated for your account. The whole thing that we do, or the drivers that we are using from CData, require an IMAP access. Now you could ask yourself, well, if they go through IMAP, why don't we just use an IMAP component? Well, IMAP is an old and robust protocol. That's true. It works, of course. But if you have ever worked with IMAP, it could become really confusing. So it's quite interesting that they built a wrapper around that IMAP protocol and made everything available through SQL, which is really, really interesting. So you see I have a couple of emails in here in my inbox, and where you need to check is to go to the settings of your account. And in the settings, there is a forwarding and pop IMAP section. And in here, make sure IMAP is enabled. You just need that. All right. So going back here, you see I have an inbox, and of course, all the other mailboxes can also be queried, and you can put messages into any other folder or mailbox, or however Gmail calls that. So let's see how to actually do that. So in my data module for Gmail, I have a query connected to the connection, of course. And in the connection, I did two things. I unchecked these two options. That basically removes the connection or connected property from being stored in the DFM file. So whenever you try something and save the form or the data module, it would actually save that we are currently connected, and the next time you open it, it will immediately try to connect. That's something I usually don't like, so I set everything on false here. And the other thing is login prompt is something we don't need here. And so we can try here again. So connected to true, and it just connects to Gmail. And now we have a query connected to that connection, and double click a query, and here is all the magic actually. So you see we have select ID from to subject and labels from inbox, order by date, descending. So the newest email is on top. So this is really easy. And in this case, we have the from key, or we have a column named from, a column named to. These are actually SQL keywords. So for that reason, I put square brackets around every field name. So to make clear, this is actually a field name and not a SQL keyword. So we can actually execute here, and we see it will query my Gmail box, and you see there is everything like from a database. And you can actually check for the structure. So the structure is relatively easy. They have even the ID fields as white string. Okay, that's fine. So how would you actually know which fields are all in that table? Well, that's relatively easy. Just put an asterisk here. Oops, where is my... Oops, I changed my keyboard layout. Let's go back here and execute. And now you got a structure overview telling you what fields are available. So that's actually quite an easy thing to figure out. So we are selecting from table inbox. So inbox is considered a table in the schema of Gmail represented by CDatas driver. How would we know that there is a table inbox? Well, you go to the documentation, and in the documentation we have this. So this is the documentation for FireDAC and Gmail. So they have actually a data model section, which is here. Let's go to the top entry, and they have tables and they have mail messages. All right, so mail messages, like here, is basically there is a table for every folder that you have in Gmail. So you need to know your folders. And of course, well, listing messages is basically done like this. So they have examples and all the SQL statements that you probably know would work here. So this is basically it. And there are a few stored procedures. So you can actually add mailboxes. So to do so, you would use the stored procedure component from FireDAC. You can delete, you can move emails, so you can move emails from one mailbox to a destination box just by identifying the email with its ID. You can rename mailboxes, of course, and there are a couple of or a few system tables which are interesting to actually investigate what you got. So there is quite a few more stuff to figure out. So with all these operations and the messages tables, you can do most of the things already. You can even cache your data. So even if you do not have an internet connection, like on a mobile device which has no connection currently, you could still run the queries, and if you have the cache activated, it would read everything from the cache as long it's already in the cache, right? So you don't really need to build your own cache, which you probably need if you created an email application that should show the data that you got even offline. So that's nice. So you might have noticed that I only selected a few fields, because if you select everything and you have a few hundred or maybe even a few thousand items in your inbox, it could take quite a long while to fetch each and every message with its body and the file attachments and everything. So I try to make this really slim. So how would we now get the actual message body that we have seen when I demonstrated the app? Well, sync SQL. So in SQL or in database applications, you can build master detail relationships. So to build a master detail relationship in FireDAC or using FireDAC components, first thing is this is going to be our master table or query. So go to the fields editor, make sure you have persistent fields by adding all fields. So currently nothing more is available. It's all the 5 fields that we selected from our inbox table. Then the next step is to drop a T data source component, assign the inbox as dataset. So this is basically becoming the master then. And now let's create another FireDAC query. And in that one, we go and put quite a different SQL. So we select everything from inbox where the ID is given by the parameter named ID. So this basically selects just a single email, a single message, which is okay. I mean, it could be quite a few, quite some megabytes of data if you have attachments and so, but it's just a single email. That's something you can actually control. And we got the parameter. It's called ID. You make it an input parameter, type a string for the ID fields. That's something we just checked. And to be able to test something here, I put in a value of 1 just to make sure the query works. And after a moment, you see there is some data coming in, and you see it's apparently everything in there. And we can check the structure again, and that works fine. All right, so in that query, you basically now connect to the master table, and the detail query is the detail query, of course. And here the master source is going to be our data source that we created here. So here is the master source, and in the master fields we just this is actually how it would look like when you started. So the ID field is in our source, and we want this to be available as master field where we get our parameter from. All right, that's basically everything that we need. And in the code, there is not much to observe. It's just a refresh procedure that I added. So I'm just checking, is the query already active? If the query is already active, we just call refresh. I didn't really investigate if the drivers really do just an easier or faster refresh instead of completely closing and opening. So, but that's basically the pattern that I use in regular database applications. When I call refresh, it first checks, is the query already active, and if yes, then just refresh. If it's not, then open the query, the inbox query, and of course we have to assume the details are not open as well, so we are opening the details. So why don't I call refresh in some way on the details? Well, that's done by the magic behind the master detail relationship that we just built. So that's something you don't have to actually do manually. So every time the current record on the master changes, the detail query, our queue details, will actually be refreshed automatically. All right, so now let's connect that to a UI. So this is just a simple, let's open the object inspector here. So this is a simple T-list view. And down here is just a memo. And here is the button that connects to the refresh method. All right, so the data is coming in by using visual live bindings. So let's open that window. And you can see I have a bind source for my queue inbox. So that's the master query. And I connected the from and the subject field. So the from is going to be the list view's item text. So that's what we see on top of every item. And we have the subject field that's going to be connected to the item's detail. That's the inner part of every list view item. And you should connect the sync property of the list view with the asterisk in the bind source. So the bind source is basically automatically added by Delphi to that view here, and that's because you should do that. You should use the module in the form. For now, I'm just using the plain simple Delphi paradigm here. So in my application, I'm creating the data module or the data modules right before I'm creating the form. So it's going to be available already before the forms are there. Okay, this webinar is not about designing and talking about how the best way is to actually instantiate data modules, but this is a standard way and that works for now. So the only thing I'm not going to show in webinars like this is to put each and every component, data components, into the form. So everything is separated from the design perspective. Okay, so we connected that. And when we go back to the designer, to the live bindings designer, so this is the second bind source, and that's the detail query actually. So you see the detail query is in here, and I'm just connecting the message body to the text property of my memo, which is on the form. So you see, you can do all the fancy stuff you have in mind and just do it, right? So that would work. And that's pretty much it. So let's run this again. Takes a moment. And the application starts up. Everything's going to be created. Of course, you would probably automatically call refresh when you show the form or something. So we do that manually just for demonstration purposes. It takes a moment to connect, and you see in the debugger all kinds of modules and threads and everything are started. And here we go. So here is our list of the messages in the inbox, and every time I navigate to a new record, the data or the query, the master query changes the record, and for that reason the detail query is updated. So this is accessing Gmail by using SQL, and that's pretty much it for today. So hope you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Thank you.